Thank you for joining us tonight. A special welcome to all you newbies. I know we got quite a few here. I want to, excuse me one second. Okay, for those that don't know me, like you newbies, I'm Sam Brancadora, Chairman of the Berks County Patriots. We're going to have Linda Brancadora open our meeting with a prayer, followed by the pledge. Linda, if you want to take over, please.
Please rise. Thank you. Dear Lord, because this month holds the Veterans Day and also the Marine Corps birthday, we are paying tribute to honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve and protect their country. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, we are proud of them. We pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness. Jesus said there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Today we pray for those men and women who have, in their military service, sacrificed their time, strength, ambition, health, and even their lives on this earth to benefit friends known and unknown. Lord, as we are approaching Thanksgiving Day, we pray that our fellow citizens will remember those men and women in their prayers. This election is over and we have voted, and some are not satisfied with the results. We did our best to elect those we thought were most qualified. Whatever the final outcome, we must accept it because we know you are the manager of all our affairs. You are in control. If the results of the election are not what we hope for, we must bow down to your wishes. We ask for forgiveness of our sins and blessings to all those that believe. We truly live in the greatest country on earth, and we must always remember to give thanks to our Creator. Lord, thank you. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rugged red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
with it. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Linda. USA, folks. USA, USA, USA. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Steve.
No one will stay up here.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. Welcome again. Folks, the Berks County election results were absolutely fantastic. They really, really were. Thank you, all of you. We thank you not only for your vote, but for you getting other people out to the polls and spreading the word. Thank you again for that. We actually won 3 statewide judge elections, 2 local judge elections, treasurer, fathonetary, and coroner. Fantastic. Thank you again for that. In addition, I'm told by someone in the room here tonight that of the candidates that we favored, our candidates that were on the ballot, not write-ins, but the others, we won over 90% of those races. That is phenomenal. That is more than outstanding, folks. So thank you all, for that. I am very encouraged with the participation and energy of a lot of the people in this particular election, particularly for the local offices. And carrying that a little bit further for the school board elections and offices. We had thousands and thousands of people do write-in votes. Can you imagine that, folks? A record number. Ask yourself, why? Why did that happen? Folks, Mama Bear has awakened. She is going to do everything she can to protect and fight for her cubs. We know that. We got a Mama Bear in here tonight. We got probably quite a few of them. But Jerry Sievert, where are you, girl? Where are you? Wave, wave. Boy, I'll tell you, she's out there, Kutztown, every month or 2 weeks, whatever it might be. We got other Mama Bears. That's what we need. We are going to continue taking it to the school boards. Look, many of them are actually quaking in their boots. They know that we're going to hold them accountable. We are going to take back our schools. We need you to continue doing what you've been doing. So thank you all. I also want to thank you, other groups, other organizations that came together to make these victories, possible, including the Republican Republican committee chaired by Mr. Clay Brees, is in the back over there. Mr. Chairman, how you doing? Now, I'm not going to talk about Virginia and New Jersey and some of the others, but we had fantastic results there as well, so that's great. But folks, where do we go from here? What are we going to do? First of all, we're going to enjoy our victories. Absolutely, we're going to enjoy these victories. We're then going to go and have a great Thanksgiving dinner next week. And then all of you are going to come here with some friends 2 weeks from tonight and honor our veterans. Honor our veterans. 2 weeks, it's early. So make sure you do that. After that, Merry Christmas. And then come back here in January, and we're going to take on all comers. We're going to kick butts. Folks, the big prize, this is fantastic elections we just had. The big prize is next November. November 2020. This is what we're looking for. This is what we want to accomplish. So we got 9 months, 10 months to really, really work hard before we get into the really scope of that. We're going to look for all your support. Again, thank you for what you've done so far. Actually, there's one more thing you need to do. You need to praise God for our victories. You need to praise God that we live in the greatest country in the world. Praise the Lord. We are very disappointed that Mr. Tom Homan is not with us tonight. Not because he didn't want to be. He wanted to be here. It was logistics. At this point, I want to introduce you to a couple people that have been working to get Tom here and will continue to work to get Tom here. First of all, we have Mark Still. Mark is the president of the Patriot Caucus. He's also co-chair. And with him, we have Vilma Ann Ruth. She is the vice president and co-chair. I'd like to have them come up and say a few words. Mark. First.
How's everybody doing tonight? You excited about the election results? Oh, no, that was so lame. No, I start off. You guys excited about the election results? A little bit better. We'll work on that. I'm so glad that Sam asked us to come up and say a few things. We've been lurking in the back for quite some time and looking for the right time to come out and introduce myself. Ourselves. And I'm also really excited that they put us in the list before Zama because I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, but it's going to pale in comparison to when he speaks. And after you hear him, you'll understand why. So I get to be cool for a couple seconds, before he comes on and wipes that all away. As you know, we are living in unsettling times. I mean, I never thought I would wake up in America where you could lose your job for not getting an injection of something you don't know about. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I never thought, if you told me 10 years ago that our schools would be teaching our kids to be ashamed of themselves because of the color of their skin or because they are part of some bigger construct, I would have told you you were crazy. But today, all of the things that we have held as inalienable truths are under attack. The mere notion of a difference between male and female is told, oh, no, there's no difference. Oh, use the same bathroom. It's okay. No, everything's topsy-turvy. There's an attack on Christianity, an attack on the family unit, the very core of what Americans hold dear. I think it's incredible and it's mind-boggling. And so our social landscape is changing. But it's not just limited to our social landscape. If you look around, if you're from Hamburg or if you're from down 61, you realize that our actual landscape is changing too. You see these big distribution boxes. They displace farming, something that's essential to the American public, food, right? The farmers are being displaced, and in their way, these large Chinese conglomerate companies have their distribution centers here. It really is a shame. And because of all these reasons and many more, I'm really frustrated at a few things. First, I'm frustrated at our community, really. And I take myself as the number one community member. I'm frustrated at myself because we sort of were quiet and let this all happen. Now, in light of what's just happened, I'm very hopeful. But let me tell you a little bit about my background and where I'm from. So I grew up about 15 minutes south on 61. If anybody remembers the old Blue Falls Grove, we own the farm right across the way from right across the river from there. I grew up there, went to Muhlenberg High School. It was a working dairy farm. It's been in my family for 200 years. If you ever have a question whether there's a difference between male and female, try to milk a bull. You'll find out really quick what that difference is, right? It's hard work, and I've lived the Berks County experience for all of my 50 years. I've been here pretty much the whole time. Like I said, I went to Muhlenberg High School. I realize what Berks Countyans are, what they stand for, and what I understand about that is we have a reverence for history. We have a reverence for the generations that have come before us. Just take our activities. The Kutztown Fair. It's a reverence to the Amish and their way of life. Take the World War II days at the airport. A reverence to the greatest generation. I know that history and this reverence is small part of our problem, because when my great-grandparents talked, and I spent a great deal of time with my great-grandparents, they were alive until I was 18. I used to spend a lot of time riding my bike into Birch Street to mow their lawn. And then my great-grandfather would get out the molasses jar, and he'd do this and pour it on a piece of bread with some butter, and we'd talk, and it was great. But I heed very much what they told me. They told me, well, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. And they also told me, mind your own beeswax. Don't get in any of that. And they also said, hey, don't get above your pay grade. Now, these were things that really rang true in their day. Really rang true in their day. But in some way, I think that mentality that we have, the reverence for those folks that minded their own business and didn't say anything, is possibly why we have some of the issues today. And what I would submit to all of you tonight is that we are in a time where we cannot heed that advice. We need to stand up. We need to make the other people, the other things that are going on, our beeswax. We need to be able to say, no, that's enough. I'm sorry. I'm going to say something here, right? Now, who voted in this past election? Raise your hand if you voted. Now, keep your hands up. If you voted, bend your hand back like this. Pat yourself on the back. That's great. That's awesome. But that's not where it ends. Because the other side, whether they be socialists, Democrats, whatever you want to call them, they're not going to sleep. They're not going away. We haven't defeated them. This is a constant thing we're going to have to do. This is something that we have to do probably for the rest of our lives. And so in the last couple of years, I've awoken. It's surprising. I've never really been in politics. I started about a year ago. And I, like you, went through a process of saying, well, I really want to do something, but what do? I don't know what to do. And that's what Patriot Caucus is all about. Patriot Caucus is an organization that you can come to get some of your questions answered. We've designed it to be a support for grassroots organizations such as this. We realize that people are waking up and they need to get educated on the issues. They need direction on what to do. They need funds. They need a lot of things. And so we've designed Patriot Caucus to be a toolbox so that we can help those organizations like Berks County Patriots, to get exactly that. And I just hope that you would stop by our table. We're not asking you to sign up. We're asking you what you need. And if we can be a help to bring those things to you, that is our pleasure to do it, and it's really what we're here for. And now I'd like to bring up my co-chair, Velma Ann Ruth, and she'll have a few words.
Thank you, Mark. I'm not a Berks Countyan. I'm not a Pennsylvanian. I'm from Washington, D.C., but if you can give me a second before you kick me out. When COVID hit, I was thinking, where do I get food that I can trust? And my mother has been very involved with organic farming associations, and horticulture for about 40 years. And she has always revered farmers markets and how important they are to support, and how the farmers are so important to support. And so I looked on Google Maps. I'm like, okay, where can I go where I can be COVID compliant and get some clean food? Well, Lancaster, everybody goes to Lancaster. I didn't want to be cliche. So I figured I'd go up to Berks County. And when I drove up through here, it just really reminded me of my grandparents and, from the northeast corner of Connecticut, Woodstock, Connecticut, in that area. And I just kind of automatically fell in love with the area. And I started coming up maybe every couple weeks, did all my grocery shopping up here, and decided I'd just kind of camp out and enjoy the environment. And then when Hurricane Isaias hit, there was a lot of damage. And I had already been advocating for certain folks who were looking to improve the area and kind of restore the communities. And I said, all right, well, let's make a couple phone calls. And it just so happened that Mark's Family Farm was right across the way, and they'd been hit by storms quite a bit over the decades. And basically what we found out is that through our time in conversation with government officials and farmers and small businesses and constituents, that everybody really wants the same thing. We want our rights to our votes. We want to support law enforcement. We want America first, farmer first. We want to support our small businesses. We want national security. And how can you get all those things when all these things are just being taken from us by the godforsaken town that I live in? Well, it's not an easy answer, and it's not a quick answer. It's a long-term answer. And really, it all boils back down to the Tea Party. So going back to when Glenn Beck started the 9/12 movement, I think it was 2009, and then it rolled into the Tea Party. So the establishment got really scared because folks started standing up. Stay-at-home moms started getting active, started organizing. And a lot of what we saw yesterday, those over a decade ago, is starting to happen again today, including to every one of us, even more so under Obama 2.0. And so when everything happened on November 4th, never mind what we all did for November 3rd, basically all of a sudden it's like, all right, here we go again, Obama 2.0 on the way. So what was the answer? A Tea Party 2.0. And so essentially what happened was I started reaching back out to a lot of the Tea Party folks that I used to work with, started reaching out to the new generation, new patriot groups, new grassroots groups, going back out in small businesses. A lot of Tea Party leaders are still out there. The IRS took them down before, but they're not dead. They're still alive. And they still have their friends. And so basically with Patriot Caucus, all we're trying to do is emulate the strength of the Tea Party, just like Berks County Patriots. We've brought a lot of people to this meeting so that they can see exactly how it's supposed to be. And I just want to say thank you for welcoming me, and I look forward to seeing y'all whenever you want. I'm here for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Wilma. We're going to do our gun raffle. Steve, you want to take it over?
Okay, let me clarify here. Unlike Alec Baldwin, this firearm has been checked and it is empty. Also, we're not going to do what the prosecutor did against that young man, Kyle Rittenhouse, and point a firearm with his finger on the trigger in a courtroom. How pathetic is that, folks? Let me introduce you to Bill. Bill's going to come up and draw a ticket. Bill's retired, USMC Sergeant. Let's have a round of applause for Bill. Hoorah! This is for the Black Aces 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun. It's a very fine weapon. You want to reach in there and grab one out for me? The winner is number 082, Carol. Wow. And look at that, our winner's here. Congratulations. Very good. Hey, how about another round of applause for Bill, USMC Sergeant Retired. Thank you, Bill. Come on up, Carol. And again, this firearm is unloaded. I did check it, and there is a chamber indicator in there. I'd like to hold that, and this gentleman is going to take some pictures with you with your brand new 12 gauge.
Thank you very
That's
much.
awesome.
Should I pick
do you
it
have
up?
your ticket, hon?
Yeah.
Okay, take this.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Steve. Okay, we're going to go on to some BCP business. First of all, we're still looking for locations to put up 4x8 signs to promote the Berks County Patriots. We have maybe 18 or so, a dozen and a half through surrounding counties. We would like to have more. If you have a location, folks, please let us know. Also, you may not have a location to do a 4x8, but you certainly all have a space that you could put these signs up. Now, we paid over $5 for these. We're not interested in making any money. A small donation, $2 would be fine. Most important thing we want is to get these throughout the counties as well. We have several hundred. We want to double that. So if you could do that, we certainly appreciate that. As you know, we do have 50-50 raffle and the gun raffle. We also have made in the USA shirts and hats. So if you please, take a look at those. Now, folks, we do these raffles to help offset some of our costs. Our only revenue, only income, is what happens here tonight and any donation. So I appreciate your support. Okay, now we're going to move on to Berks County Patriots elections, board election. Okay, before we start the election, I want to acknowledge the board members that are not up for election and have agreed to stay. That's Linda Brancador. Linda, you can wave your hand. Helen McMinn is not here. She's in California. Joe Phillips, Joe's in the back. Joe, back there, selling the gun raffle tickets. Steve, you just know, he has the firearm in his hand. Wayne Lesher, Wayne. And we have myself. Also, Lori is our recording secretary. She's agreed to stay on. Lori, wave wherever you are. There you are, girl. Okay. Thank you all for staying on. Appreciate that. I also want to thank you. I also want to thank Dennis Greff and Beth Cassesi. Both of those are not staying on. They have issues that they want to, just not able to stay on. I want to thank them for the time that they spent on the board. Let's give them a big thank you as well. Now, the new nominees. As I mention your name, just come forward, please. Tom Gross, is Tom here? Tom? Okay. Tom's not here. Sally Greff. Sally, please. You're going to have a 10-minute speech, Sally? No, just easy. Sally. Len Krug, come up, please. We have Kelly Hurd. Kelly. Marie Perry. And Mary Beth Clark. Okay. Folks, per our bylaws, a ballot is not necessary. A hand yes or no vote of all nominees is possible. So, do I have a motion from the floor? A motion from the floor? Shirley? A motion from the floor to for the six here for the 2022 board? Thank you. Lori, make sure you get Shirley's name. Do I have a second? Who? Where? Get a name. Get a name. Lori? I'm not sure who that is. George Holmes? George Holmes we have? Okay, that's fine. Any discussion on the motion, folks? Okay, then we proceed to vote. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Fantastic. The ayes of the board agrees that the motion would be official. Corey, Laura, if you would record that accordingly. Thank you all. Let's give them a big round of applause. They could be doing a lot of other things, but they decided they're going to work with us and help you guys. So thank you again. Thank you, board. New board 2022. Thank you all. You are now dismissed, Len. Okay? Too many papers. Okay. I'm looking forward to this. We have a young lady that hasn't been here for a while due to illness. She really had a fight in her hands, and she beat it. So she is here to give us our Constitution Minute. Carol Gardecki, welcome, girl.
Thank you, everybody. Those of you who have been here for a long time, who know me, I found out while I was in the hospital 4 times this summer. I found out that at one of these meetings, all you folks out there prayed for me, and it touched me. And I think you got me through it. I really needed those prayers, so thank you for that. Okay, you often hear me and other people say that we're not following our Constitution. It's true, it happens all the time. I want to read the very first section. The very first thing in the Constitution after the preamble. Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. That means that all laws have to come from our representatives, our senators and our representatives. Nobody else makes laws, just them. In our states, it is the same. Our states have the same kind of government that our federal government is. They have 3 branches, just like our federal government. And the same thing happens in the state. The legislature passes the law. When I was getting ready to do this little talk, I came across something that Judge Napolitano wrote, so he's helping me out here. He says, you know, we're getting a lot of executive orders. Aren't you tired of hearing about executive orders? And mandates. Okay. Here's what Napolitano says. He says the destruction of liberty is being caused by the vaccine mandates. And then he gives examples. The executive order of Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who purported to prohibit private businesses in Texas, from mom and pop stores to Fortune 100 conglomerates, from requiring their employees to provide COVID. Now in Texas, he said he had a mandate, I'm not making you give your employees vaccine. At the same time, President Biden, he announced that he wants to compel the employers of all people, all businesses that have 100 or more people, to make them give the mandates. Okay, one of these people prohibits behavior on private property. The other compels behavior on private property, and both of them are wrong. Both of them are violating liberty, because an edict is not a law. Neither of them went to their legislature and asked their legislature to pass a law. They're just saying it and they're making us obey. Well, if we didn't obey, what could they do? But we are very docilely like a bunch of sheep going along. And anyway, I want to mention why the states have the same type of government. That's in the Constitution too. There's a little section in there called the Guarantee Clause. It's in the Constitution. It says the states also must employ the separation of powers with the same legislative, executive, and judicial separation as the federal government. So it's not an accident that our states have the same kind of government as our federal, but we're just not listening to it. So a conservative Republican governor and a liberal Democrat president effectively are doing the same thing, regulating private property without legislation. Remember, that was the very first sentence in our Constitution. The very first sentence they're violating already. There's a lot more to the Constitution than that. How much more violation do you think there is? There's a lot. There's a lot. And we have to start standing up against it. You have to say to yourself, is this a law? A mandate is not a law. Never was, never will be. So you don't have to just roll over and do what they tell you. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Carol. Back.
Okay. I'd like to introduce Dr. Nche Zama. I read his book, and it's a chronicle of a little boy that grew up lived in a grass hut in Africa, made his way to the land of opportunity, United States, and became a renowned medical surgeon and humanitarian. Now he wants the icing on the cake to be governor. One thing in the book that really touched me was how close he was with his grandmother. He helped her, he lived with her for a while, and he helped her do her daily chores. And this was very dear to my heart, being a grandmother myself. And talking about hearts, Dr. Zama told me that if my heart goes bad, I just have to call him and he'll come and fix it. Please welcome Dr. Nche Zama, MD, PhD. There you go. Thank you.
I love you. Greetings, everybody. Isn't God great? I stand here today as a testimony to God. If you don't believe in God, well, let's have a chat afterwards. And God deserves a round of applause. Amen. And before I get started, I'd like to, first of all, thank God for bringing all of us here tonight to fellowship. And people go on and live their lives, and sometimes they forget that there's a God out there that guides us through good times, through challenging times, and through bad times as well. And as we're talking about it, I just need to remind you that there are 17 of God's children stuck somewhere in Haiti. You've heard about that. And I think we need to bow our heads for a little bit and pray that God will guide and bring him home. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Nche Zama. I'm a retired cardiovascular and thoracic surgeon. It's a big word. It actually means a heart surgeon, somebody who takes out hearts, fixes them, puts them back in the chest, and a lung surgeon. So I'm a heart-lung surgeon, and I'm very glad and I feel very honored to be here today. And so many of you I've met already during the picnics, during the summer, and other venues in this county. And also, Berks, we're very proud of you for what you did in the most recent elections. So we need a round of applause to everybody that participated. It's been said that we're all travelers in the wilderness of this world, and the best we can find in our travels is a good friend. And so tonight, I feel like I'm among good friends. Again, thank you. My journey, as the sister said earlier, started a long way from here in a grass hut village where I was raised by two very loving Christian parents. They were illiterate farmers. And let me just backtrack a little bit. The farmers are really unsung heroes, aren't they? Let's give them a round of applause. Just a few days ago, I was at a meeting in Hershey. How many of you were there? The farmers' meeting, convention? But I met a professor of agriculture who actually helped the business of agriculture in the village that I grew up in, Cameroon. Isn't that something? It's a small world. And it was great to meet him. But my parents were subsistence farmers. We grew corn, beans. I grew up on the farm. But something happened when I was a little boy. I started to agitate because I wanted to go to school. And we only had a couple of missionary schools at that time. And so my uncle, because I was putting so much pressure on him, my grandmother and everybody, he says, okay, I'll take you to school, but they may not take you because you're too young. And understandably, that day, I was rejected by both schools because I was too young. And I kept throwing temper tantrums. I was only about 3 years old. I wanted to go to school. And, you know, my parents didn't understand all this school stuff. We've got a farm, you've got chores to do, you have, you know. And then, as we were sitting in the village, by the hut, another uncle came and he says, have you heard the Baptist? They're going to open a new elementary school. And before long, we got out of the village, trekking, half running, and we got there. And because I wanted to go to school so much, he tried the best he could, and he was successfully convincing so that the new headmaster admitted me. And so I started first grade at about 3 years of age. And I never came back to the village psychologically. I started to learn new things, and I lived in the village physically, but mentally I was traveling the world like Jules Verne. And my mother and father would sit up every night to watch me study under candlelight or a bush lamp. And she would hand me the book. She says, sit your butt down and study. 2-3 hours minimum every single day. Sunday, we went to church. We got back. you got to study. And sometimes she would hand me the book upside down because she didn't know which side was up. But I had so much respect for her and my dad that I learned to study and read upside down. And so things were going great. She showed what I call tough love. She'll spank you maybe once in a while. She'll say, I love you. But don't let that go to your head. There's work to do. There's farming work to do. There's homework to do. And then one day I left her early in the morning to go to school. It was about a 5-mile trek. We have a sister here who worked in Africa like a Peace Corps volunteer who understands. And actually she worked not too far away from where I grew up. She knows what I'm talking about. 5 miles every morning. And it wasn't like on 209, a nice wide highway. No, it was jungle. Snakes, animals. And then on the way back from school that day, I ran into my uncle who looked very troubled. And I said, what's the matter? Well, your mother went to the hospital to give birth and she's bleeding. She needs blood. And so I ran off to the hospital, walked into that hospital room, which was the hospital in name. It was a little hut. And the first person I encountered was a nurse, standing there with her arms in the air and crying. And all she kept repeating is, there's no doctor, there's no doctor. And lying in the corner was a 30-year-old lady in extreme distress, thrashing around in the bed, blood flowing out of her groin down the side of the bed and making a puddle on the floor. My 30-year-old mother was in a bad situation. And I ran over to her, and I was running over saying, Mommy, she heard my voice, and she says, son, go home, I'm dying. And all I could think of saying was, Mommy, please don't die. I grabbed her hand. She was my greatest drum major ever, and I didn't want to lose her. So I held her hand, held her leg, and some of that blood was soaking my shorts, and I said, Mommy, please don't die. I kept squeezing her hand, but before long, her body went flaccid, and she died. And as I walked out of that hospital room, crying my eyes out, all I kept hearing ringing in my ears were the words of that nurse, there's no doctor. My brothers and sisters, it comes a time in our lives, that transcendent moment philosophers talk about, the crossroads in our life where you pick a path and follow, and an event occurs that propels you to make that decision. That moment came for me on that village trail from the hospital back to my village. I decided that I wanted to be a doctor so no other child would have to experience what I just experienced, and no parent would have to suffer like my mother had just suffered before dying. And subsequently, I enrolled at a missionary school run by the Marist Brothers of England. And I graduated at the top of my class. And a Peace Corps volunteer who I met there on campus looked at me and said, son, you work very hard. You're a good student. You need to consider going to America to study. Because in America, there are many opportunities, and if you work hard, emphasis on work hard, you can put yourself through school. It wouldn't be long before, sitting in one of those huts, a basket was passed, and the villagers donated what amounted to $20. My father sold our hut and the crops around it and got about $300 and bought me a one-way ticket to New York City. And on August 29, 1974, as a 14, 15-year-old, I arrived in New York City scared, with nothing but a prayer in my heart and hopes that this land of opportunity would make real for me. I wound up at the YMCA in Baltimore, at that time penniless, crying every night, drinking water from the sink, until a student who worked there that summer saw me in my plight and got on the radio and made an announcement in Baltimore. Would anybody be willing to house a homeless kid from Africa? I knew no one. I prayed every night as my parents had taught me to pray. And then I'd drink water and cry myself to sleep. And one day there was a knock on the door. They said, somebody was looking for me downstairs. I said, who could possibly in North America be looking for me? And so I went downstairs. And all I remember is there was a neatly dressed gentleman, his name Sam. And he looked at me and all he asked was, is your name Nche? I says, yes, sir. He says, go get your stuff and you live with me. And so I slept on a couch in his one-bedroom apartment. Eventually, my educational journey took me through earning a bachelor's degree, working 2-3 jobs, a master's degree from Harvard, a PhD in chemistry, and a doctorate in medicine. This is the greatness of America that I want to be real for our children and the future of this nation, and I want you to join me in that regard. I believe in the U.S. Constitution. The Second Amendment never killed anybody. I'm pro-life. I've spent my whole life saving lives. I've traveled the world doing free heart surgery on every continent you can think of. I've helped build schools in Africa. There's an entire elementary school where the kids had my scholarship. This is the greatest nation in the world, and I see people trying to destroy it with crazy theories like critical race theory. You need a leader who's been through the trenches like you, who would stand strong and fight, not just for now, but the future of this nation. And I'm that package deal for you. Yes, I understand business. I understand technology. I think with PhD, I can tell the people out there that green energy cannot run our industries in Pennsylvania yet. And they can't argue. And yes, I understand healthcare. I've served you honorably for a couple of decades. So if you seek the highest level of excellence, we're the crossroads in our history. Give me a consideration, because just like my mother, whose bedside I wouldn't leave when she cried out, and just like being a heart surgeon, I never left you, I'll never desert you as your governor. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Folks, my name's Jamie Barton, for those that don't know me, and I serve on the legislative committee here at Berks Patriots. And it's my pleasure tonight to introduce my friend Lisa Scheller, Republican candidate for United States Congress, 7th Congressional District. Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District includes all of Lehigh and Northampton counties and parts of Monroe. 7th Congressional District is currently held by the flaming liberal Susan Wild, and emphasis on Wild. So seriously, Lisa Scheller is a trailblazer in the world of business and a successful reformer in public service. As a Lehigh County Commissioner, Lisa was successful in cutting taxes every year, saving taxpayers over $41 million. It's real money. I have the pleasure of doing business with Lisa, and I can assure you that she knows firsthand how red tape and radical proposals like a Green New Deal stymie our local businesses and our families. Business leader, philanthropist, mother, fellow patriot, and genuine leader that gets things done. Please join me in welcoming Republican candidate for U.S. Congress, 7th District, Lisa Scheller.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. And Jamie, thank you for that great introduction. And thank you, Berks County Patriots, for allowing me to speak here this evening. Right now, as Jamie said, PA 7 is Northampton County, Lehigh County, and part of Monroe. But redistricting is not done yet, and your guess is any bit as good as my guess right now. Berks could become a part of it. And I know you have a great congressman in Congressman Dan Muser. He and we have spoken. He has endorsed me fully, and we'll make sure that everything works all right, that Berks County stays a Republican county. So my name is Lisa Scheller, and I'm running for U.S. Congress to protect our American dream and to stop the Democrats from turning our American dream into a socialist nightmare. I am the granddaughter of immigrants who came here more than 100 years ago. They came here legally, seeking freedom, the American dream, equality of opportunity, personal liberty, and a trust in the wisdom of the common person. And my grandfather had an American dream, and it was to start a small manufacturing company, which he did in 1945. And today, I'm not a politician, I'm an engineer, I'm a job creator. I run that very same manufacturing company headquartered in Schuylkill County, where we have 160 great Pennsylvanians working in good manufacturing jobs, and we export over 40% of what we make all over the world. I know what Made in America means, and I love what Made in America means. But there's more. More than two, and some of it is about this, which I'll be talking about. Over 2.5 million men and women gave their lives defending and creating this nation. And millions more came home broken in mind, body, and spirit. And countless others, they put their lives on the line. And they did it for me. And they did it for my children, and I take this very personally, and so should all of you. They served, sacrificed, and died so that we could live in a nation where all men are created equal and where our Creator, God, has endowed us with the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so what of this bracelet? It's called a Defender's Bracelet. It was given to me by my friend Patrick, who is a veteran. It has a little charm on each of the military branches on it. And he gave me a few of them, and he said, please give these out to veterans as a small token of your appreciation. Because you know what, I love Memorial Day, but I don't need it to remember those who gave their lives. I know every single day, because I wear this all the time, where my freedom comes from. And so I'd like to ask all the veterans and active service members and your families to stand, because families are part and they are serving too, and be recognized. Thank you very much. And here is my commitment to you for all that you do. I am pledging 100% of my congressional salary to charities that benefit veterans living in the district, because God has blessed me, and along with that blessing comes the privilege, the obligation to give back and help people. So I have about 50 of those bracelets in my car, and somehow they'll probably magically get back to my table at the end. So if any of the veterans want to come up or service people, I would love to give you a Defender's bracelet as well. So let me talk a little bit about what Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Susan Wild, and the Democrats are up to, okay? Yeah. Inflation is at its highest in over 30 years. We're making Jimmy Carter look good, right? And we're being forced to shut down our energy sources in Pennsylvania, killing our economy, crushing jobs, and buying energy from foreign countries like Russia, not only killing the economy and costing more, but creating a national security risk. And the Democrats want us to go on a socialist spending spree.
Let's try this one.
I guess that's how they can. Hey, you know what? You want someone with a big mouth in Washington representing you? It's not going to stay quiet. It's going to make sure that you're represented with conservative constitutional values. Okay. I probably need about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, actually, this one is still working.
1 more minute. Oh my gosh, 1 more minute. Okay, so we get to the crux of it. Our nation is a mess, and the Democrats are selling us down a road to socialism and a whole lot worse. You know what? I know that I can win this race. I have the energy, I have the stamina, and I know that I will win this race, but I can't do it alone. First of all, let me tell you this. I'm a mother. I am a taxpayer advocate. I am a voice for those in recovery because I am 39 plus years in recovery, and I founded a coffee shop that ends the stigma of being in recovery by employing people early in recovery and helping them get a pathway to recovery. I'm 39 years in recovery. I'm a job creator. And like all of you, I'm an ordinary, patriotic American citizen who is sick and tired of what's going on and who loves our country and our values and our Constitution and is willing to stand up and fight for that Constitution. And I have the energy and I'm up for the challenge because I am a fighter. But I can't do it alone. I need all of you beside me, and I need you to help me in the fight. We will win in 2022. We will win in 2022. We will take back the House for Republicans. We will take back the Senate for Republicans. We are going to take back the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. And in 2024, we are going to take back the White House. And I know we can do this. You will not find a candidate who works harder than me because I believe in this country and this nation. And I need you to fight with me so that on November 8th, 2022, we give walking papers to Susan Wild and we knock that gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's cold fingers. Thank you very much. Please come back at our table. Check out my website, www.schellerforcongress.com. God bless you. God bless the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And God bless this amazing United States of America.
And while we're waiting for our next speaker, there are 8 tickets left for 525 rounds of 9mm ammo. 8 tickets. If we get them sold, we're going to knock them out tonight too. And we have the 45 caliber 1911 we still have tickets for. So we only need 8 more of those tickets sold for the 9mm, and we can run them tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Lisa. She's fantastic, isn't she, folks? Thank you, Lisa. Up next, William Mulgrew, who's on the Berks County Patriots Legislative Committee, is going to talk for a few minutes. Remember I told you earlier, folks, I was so proud of all the people that came out for the various write-ins for the school districts. He's going to talk about Kutztown and what happened there. William, come on up, please.
Thank you so much, Sam. In addition to this organization, I am also Republican committee man for Greenwood in the Kutztown Area School District, and I'm also the treasurer for KASD Children First PAC. Critical race theory and equity are nowhere for a lot of us. For me, I found out about it in my own school district the weekend before the primary. How it is. And this thing is cutting in and out. Oh, okay, gotcha. Stop pushing the button. All right, thanks. So we found out right before the primary, a lot of voters were in the same boat. Out soon enough. And for that reason, a lot of good-for-nothing leftists flew under the radar and snuck onto the Republican ballot. This November the 2nd, in the Kutztown Area School District, not only did we sweep 3 out of 4 of our school directors, but we had a write-in candidate, Jeremiah Light, who defeated a 2-term incumbent who was nominated on both tickets, Republican and Democrat, and we knocked him out. We swept the board. We knocked out the incumbents. We knocked out the president of the school board. People out there are fed up with critical race theory and equity, and they want change, and we brought change. Something that helped the process tremendously. In the Berks County Republican Committee, we realized that we had a problem on our hands where a lot of leftists snuck onto the ballot when voters didn't have enough time to realize what they stood for. And we camped about this and said we can't hurt what we stand for by allowing this. We changed the bylaws and allowed endorsements of write-in candidates for school director, something that we never did before previously. And it was Clay Brees, the chair of the Berks County Republican Committee, that's Clay over there in the red shirt in the back, who supported that change. He supported it. He said, this is a good idea. We put it up for a vote. The members of our committee voted and we approved it. Now we're authorized to do that. If people sneak onto the ballot, they try to cross-file, they're a Democrat, they're a leftist, they try to sneak onto our ballot. First of all, we're going to block them in the primary going forward, but if they slip past us, we got a second round of defense now. So that was the big change, big innovation there. There's a big opportunity in front of you now. This coming primary, there's going to be a committee election for the Berks County Republican Committee. There are a lot of vacancies. There's a lot of openings. You have it within you as being the biggest weapon against the left in our county and in our Commonwealth. You can join our committee. While everybody's trying to take something back, we're trying to take back the governor's mansion, the White House, the legislature, the Congress, the school boards. The one thing you don't have to take back is the Berks County Republican Committee. We are an America First committee. And with your help, your support, your prayer, your willingness to join, your willingness to go to that table in the back there and talk to the folks back there about what we're about, how you can be involved. Your involvement can keep it that way. Keep it America First organization. Thank you so much for hearing me tonight. God bless all of you.
Okay, I don't think I was supposed to introduce the next speaker, but Bob's up next. Robert Nelson. Robert has worked for the CDC for about 30 years. He gave us some information on the vaccine mandates. He's going to, I think tonight, talk about the booster or maybe even go a little further. Welcome, Bob. Okay, we'll give him 1 second. You have a chart. Here.
Thank you. As Sam said, my name's Bob Nelson. I'm a proud member of the Berks County Patriot and a member of the Legislative Committee. I have a PhD in epidemiology. I was in the public health service for 23 years. I'm going to give you a quick update because I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to talk very fast on some of the COVID issues and how you can protect yourself. You don't really have to see all the graphs. I'll explain them, and there's not that many. But, you know, a scientist has to have some charts. This is a simple chart. Survival from little to big, age. We all know that COVID has almost no risk of mortality amongst the young. As you get to the 50s and 60s, there's a slight risk. You know, 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000. But then when you get into the 70s and 80s, your risk for COVID drops dramatically. We all know that. Everybody knows that. And there's a huge difference between this line and here, about a 9,000-fold difference in your probability of death. If I would change this vertical axis to immunologic status and leave everything else the same and graph it out, it would look almost identical. So your risk for dying from COVID is very dependent on your immunological status. I'm just going to move this back a little bit because on the bottom of my notes, we're going to talk about the vaccine ever so briefly because there are many different tools that you can use to stay healthy. I am not an anti-vaxxer. I think the vaccine is important, but the vaccine is important here. Okay, the people at risk need to take the vaccine, and because these vaccines are so crappy, you need to get a booster every 4 months because the antibodies drop off and you have no lasting immunity with these. So if you're over 60, 65, or anybody with health conditions, please get your vaccine because there is a real risk. Now for anybody over here, it's a totally different story. And everybody needs to make individual decisions. Mandates are absolutely ridiculous and unscientific. And you need to make a decision based on your own situation and your own risk tolerance. But I would recommend that everybody over here, which is 65 and beyond, get their vaccine and be very conscientious about the boosters. Because as I said, this vaccine will not keep you safe from COVID. You will still be able to get sick, maybe less than if you weren't vaccinated. You still will be able to transmit the virus about the same as unvaccinated. You still will get sick, but maybe less severe than the unvaccinated. And people who are fully vaccinated will die, maybe less often than those vaccinated. So the vaccine is not the answer to this pandemic, but it is a tool and it will help, and the people that have the real risk need all the help they can get. Okay, she's asking the risk. If you're over here, most of the risks are long-term. If you're an old person, what the hell difference does that make? If you're over here, you got risk of pericarditis. I can't answer all the questions. I've got 10 minutes. I can talk to you later. If you're over here and you're a young man and you're getting pericarditis, myocarditis, that's very, very significant because when you become over here, you may have congestive heart failure. So there are certain things about these vaccines that are problematic, but I would contend that the benefit outweighs the risk for the people at the end of the scale. Over here, it's extremely debatable, and if they would be honest with the data, people could make an honest decision. My goal tonight is to explain how best for you to survive this pandemic, because it is not going away. And you should not become complacent right now. We're entering the winter, and winter is flu season and it's COVID season. Delta is coming. It's here in Pennsylvania. I don't know. I don't predict the future, but I would say the great probability is we are going to see many, many more people get sick in December, January, and February. But then it should peter off by May, become endemic, and go away. So don't become complacent. I can't hear you. So what can you do now? Well, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to give medical advice. I've got a PhD, so I'll tell you what I do, and maybe it'll apply to you. I take vitamin D, 5,000 international units every day. I take vitamin C, 2 to 3 grams every day, and I take zinc, 200 milligrams every day. I've lost about 30 pounds. I exercise regularly. I'm outside as much as possible, and I get as much sleep as possible. I use melatonin to help me sleep. All these things will help boost your immune system, okay? So they are very important tools. They're very easy to implement, very easy to take care of. I would recommend everybody follow what I'm doing on this. There's some more about now. There are 4 Ds that you need to pay attention to, which is distance between people, which we violate here tonight. Density, people in a room crowded, we violate that tonight. And duration, when you're close to people and you're speaking really close to their faces, that's, if they're infected, that's when you can get a big viral load. Yes, people should stay home when they're sick, but there is a period where you're pre-symptomatic. You're sick, but you don't feel sick, but you will be sick in a couple days. Those are the people that spread things. And then draft. I recommended that we blow fans across this room tonight, and that recommendation was not able to be held. But this is something to keep in mind when you go into any space, because all it takes is one active spreader right now, and a lot of you people will get sick, vaccinated or not. Another thing you should do, or I do, whenever I'm in contact with an elderly person, I make sure that elderly person has an N95 mask. The elderly person wears the mask. You teach them how to put it on in a sterile fashion, put it on, and they are safe. The virus will not cross that N95 mask. The cloth masks are worthless. The surgical masks have about a 10% protective factor. These have a 95 to 100% protective. Whenever I'm in contact with an elderly person or anybody at high risk, I try to make sure that they get N95 masks on their face. The other people don't need to wear a mask, but the elderly person or the person at risk needs it. There is also a website called Frontline Critical Care Doctors, flccc.net. That's run by a group of physicians that believe that early care and early treatment of COVID will prevent you from ever getting to the hospital. I encourage you all to go to this website, read what they have there, and if you agree with what they say, they can arrange to have ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine prescribed to you and sent to your home. You need to do this now before you get ill, because you need to take it immediately upon symptoms. So that's an important website. Most regular doctors will not prescribe that. So what do you do if you get exposed? Well, the first thing you need to do, besides cleaning your hands, which we all do, is clean your nose, for God's sakes. Clean your mouth. Where do you think the viruses are? So on the table I have a nose lavage system to suck out germs from your nose. I have the old type Listerine, which is alcohol-based, which will kill all the viruses. So if you're exposed, a simple thing to do is to clean out your nose, gargle with Listerine or some other alcohol-based thing, and it'll kill any virus that's in your system, in your nasal cavity, because that's where they start that's where they attach and that's where they replicate. So if you do nothing after a potential exposure, they'll just grow. Something like this can eradicate most of your viruses and keep you safe. And then fresh air. Immediately when I leave here, I'm going to go out and I'm going to suck a lot of fresh air and blow it out. And then avoid your family for a while if you believe you've been exposed. 85% of all COVID cases goes from one family to another in your home. 85%. So if you think you've been exposed, avoid your family for just a few days. You don't need a 14-day quarantine. Now, if you become symptomatic, get tested immediately. And when I say symptomatic, any respiratory symptoms, get tested immediately. And if you believe the doctors at the FLCCC, you start a course of ivermectin, and you increase your vitamin D dose to 10,000 milligrams per day. And hopefully that'll be sufficient to prevent the symptoms from continuing. However, if they do continue and they get into your lungs, it's very dangerous. You need to go to the emergency room and you need to ask by name for Regeneron. Regeneron monoclonal antibody. This is what President Trump received, popped right out of it. I can't see that sign, by the way. Oh, okay. I got a red light, so I'm finishing up. Now, this is the most important thing I'm going to leave you with in the last minute. There was a study that came out 3 weeks ago by some German physicians where they did a systematic review and a meta-analysis on the impact of vitamin D on COVID. And this is a powerful thing because most people knew that vitamin D did impact COVID, but the studies were small because the pharmaceutical companies wouldn't fund them. Well, they did a whole meta-analysis. And this is another simple graph that you can pay attention to. This is the probability of death from 0 to 100. 0 to 100. This is your level of vitamin D in your blood from 0 nanograms per milliliter to 50. This is a negative correlation. And what this means that your probability of death will decrease when your levels of vitamin D increase. This was a very, very important study, and why they're not blasting it all over the place and why the politicians and everybody else, all you politicians, listen. Vitamin D has the potential to bring the probability of COVID to 0, COVID death. This is the most important thing that you can do. And I would recommend, even though I can't give a medical advice, that every one of you go out and get vitamin D on your way home tonight, get it tomorrow, and take 5,000 international units, not 1,000, not 2,000, because that'll bring you over here. You need 5,000 if you're a regular person. If you're a big person, you may need 10,000. That'll get your blood levels over here. And the research shows that it'll take your probability of COVID death almost to 0. And of course, we all want you to survive because you can't vote if you don't survive. So if you pay attention a little bit, you might be able to make it to next November. Oh, wait, I got one more slide here. So let's get a chant going. Start at this side. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. Now, when you go home, get your vitamin D. I'm very serious about that. The best thing you can do, 5,000 to 10,000 international units every day. It can't hurt you, and it may be the thing that has much more value than these vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Folks, we are against mandates for vaccine. We are against mandates for masks. You have the choice. You make the decision. You make the decision for yourself. Parents, make it for your children. Okay, next we have a raffle going off for the
9mm ammunition. We sold those 8 that I talked about. Let's give a hand to Lenny. He's one of our board members and a Navy veteran. He's going to draw, and no, he did not buy a ticket. Board members are precluded from buying tickets for firearms or ammo. What do we got, Lenny? What do we got?
M. Mangle.
D. Mengel, 053. 053. Mengel here, D. Mengel.
Back.
All right, Lenny will meet you back there with the ticket and go over see Joe to get your ammo at the gun table. Thank you. Thanks again, Lenny, for drawing.
Thank you, Steve. Folks, up next is Dwight Wegman. I talked to you earlier about the school board results we had as far as write-ins and so forth. Dwight is going to talk about Wilson School and a little more beyond that. Dwight?
Okay, good to be with you tonight. So, just to give a little different perspective, a lot of people are wondering, like, why did we have to have write-ins for our school board candidates? And just a little perspective is that historically, school boards are not supposed to be political. But what has happened is that the left has made them very political. And the reason why we didn't run strong conservative candidates in the primary is that the left was hiding their whole agenda from our community and the parents. And the day before the primary in May, I happen to live in Sinking Spring, Wilson School District. That is when they unveiled their equity policy, which was their vehicle for critical race theory, among other things. And so that's when the community actually got an idea of what they were up to. And then just a lot of regular people, moms, dads, community members, we started digging into what they were doing. And that's when we uncovered all the garbage. And at that point, the only alternative we had was to mount a write-in campaign. And I think that's what happened all over the county, probably all over the country, is that the left has been suppressing things and doing things behind the scenes. But now we're awake. And they poked the bear. They poked Mama Bear, and Mama Bear isn't going back to sleep. So what we did in Wilson is we just mounted a grassroots write-in campaign. We had just regular people step up and say, we're going to run. And in 8 weeks' time, basically from Labor Day is when we kick things off, a write-in campaign, we got 11,250 votes in last week's, the election 2 weeks ago. Now, that's really unheard of. You know, write-in candidates, they're generally like an afterthought or a protest vote, but they're not really considered to be serious candidates. Well, we had a serious message that really resonated in the community, and I'll tell you, we gave the left a real scare. And we're not going away. They think we're just going to crawl in a hole and go away, but that's not happening. We're organizing for 2 years, and we're going to come back and we're going to win. And they know that. You know, the left, they're really very thin-skinned people. They're not used to moms and dads and community members showing up at school board members and challenging what they're going to do. And so what do they try to do? They try to intimidate. They try to scare. They call up Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, the FBI, and says, we're going to look at you guys and investigate you as domestic terrorists, just like we do drug dealers and human traffickers. It's inconceivable that they would do that, but that's what we got right now, and that's why we got to win next year. So I'll just say, what does it mean for the rest of us here? You know, I don't have to speak to you. You're the converted. You know what's going on. But there's a lot of people in our community who are still asleep. You probably know people who are apathetic. We got to wake people up, because our future and our children's education, our children's future, is what's hanging in the balance. And if we don't wake up and wake our communities up, we'll have no one to blame but ourselves. But I really do think, as a result of what you saw in Virginia, that there's a lot of people in this nation who still want our nation, as the values of our nation as it was founded. They want conservative values. I'll just say, as I finish up, the message we took to our community was we were fighting CRT because it's a poisonous ideology that promotes racism. It doesn't get rid of it. We were speaking board transparency. It's time for the school boards to stop doing things behind the backs of the people and be open with the people of what they're doing. We want to get rid of the reckless spending, tens of millions of dollars for frills that have nothing to do with education. And yeah, what was the last thing? You'd think I know it from going door to door. But I'll just say, that is a winning message in your community. That's what regular people, patriotic people, they want to hear, and you just need to find principled candidates who'll do that. So anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dwight. Appreciate that very much. As I said earlier, there were thousands and thousands of votes out there for write-ins. Folks, we have a 3-minute speaker, and then we have Sean Parnell, candidate for next Senate, will be up. Up next is George Holmes. George is the mayor of Hamburg. He has an issue that he would like to share. Let's all welcome George.
Hi, everybody. I'm George Holmes, mayor of Hamburg, as Sam said, and thank you, Sam, for allowing me to speak today. I talked to him earlier, and I said, hey, I'd like to speak to the group sometime in the future. He said, how about tonight? Okay. So here I am. I-78, Lenhartsville exit. There's a bridge there. Anybody hear about the Lenhartsville Bridge project? Who has heard about it? Okay, so some people. So for those that haven't heard about it, let me explain it real quick. PennDOT has a program. It's called a private-public partnership, and they're going to use this to replace the bridge on I-78 near Lenhartsville exit. To do that, they are going to toll I-78. But don't worry, it's only going to be $1 or $2. They haven't decided yet. $1 or $2. I mean, that's 100% difference there. And so they're going to toll this interstate to pay for it for the next 30 years. And then I'm sure they will stop tolling it after that. I'm sure they will. So this has kind of gone along. This was proposed by the Wolf administration. PennDOT has been trying to get it going, and it has been opposed by our legislators, by the General Assembly, okay? They have passed Senate Bill 382, which will eliminate this. However, if you understand the legislative process, it has gone through the Senate, it has gone through the House, now it has to go back to the Senate, and then guess who it goes to? The governor. Do you think the governor is going to allow that to pass? No, he's going to veto it. So we're still stuck with this problem. So this is what I need. I need some action from people who are angry about it, okay? And I look at it, nobody wants to have extra tolls to pay, but I also look at it as mayor of Hamburg, and I look at the added traffic that's going to come through our area because people are going to try to go around the tolls. And I sent a comment to PennDOT, strongly worded comment about this, and they said, no, don't worry. Only 7% of the daily traffic will divert and come through your area. So I did the math. 50,000 vehicles a day, 7%, that's 3,500 vehicles per day coming through our area on Old Route 22. But don't worry, they're going to put in a traffic light in Lenhartsville. All right, so here's what I need you to do. If you go Google I-78 PennDOT Lenhartsville, you're going to get the website. There's a public comment period. It goes on till November 24th. You can leave a public comment. You can call them. You can do as you please. Express your disapproval for this project. And after that, if you want to do more, go on to hamburgborough.com. You'll find my contact information there. We'll start getting a grassroots organization together, and we'll put this project down, okay? So thank you for your help. You guys have a great day.
All right. Hi, I'm Wayne Lesher. I'm chairman of the Legislative Committee. We had a meeting yesterday, and we formed two subcommittees, one for education and one to formulate questions for the candidates in the spring for governor, U.S. Senate, and lieutenant governor. And that's open, those subcommittees are open to the general membership. So if anybody's interested in signing up for either committee, go to the T-shirt table and you can give us your name and email address and we'll take it from there. Now, our next guest was busy working on getting a degree in education when the towers came down. He immediately transferred to University of Pitt for the ROTC program. Upon graduating, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant and went on to Airborne and Ranger School and eventually ending up with the 10th Mountain Division. He spent 485 days fighting in the Afghan-Pakistan border. 85% of his platoon had received Purple Hearts. He himself got a Purple Heart along with 2 Bronze Stars. You can read about it in his book, Outlaw Platoon. I read it, it's excellent. Upon retiring from the Army as a highly decorated captain with a medical discharge, he came back to Pennsylvania and earned a master's degree in psychology and started his family. He's also co-founder of the American Warrior Institute, which advocates for and supports veterans and their families. Oh, and one other thing. In September, he was endorsed by Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, the candidate for U.S. Senate, Sean Parnell.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing okay? So look, my name's Sean Parnell. I'm running for United States Senate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I just want to tell you right now that I come into this job with a very healthy disdain of both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. Do you want to know why? Because this country is in desperate need of more leaders and fewer politicians. And ladies and gentlemen, I am running for this Senate seat as an American hell-bent on saving this country. So can I tell you all a little bit about my journey to this spot, how I came to be right here? Is that okay with you? So my journey started 20 years ago, and back then I was just a college kid at Clarion University in Western Pennsylvania. Back then the limit of my responsibilities was writing papers, trying to get to class on time, trying to wrap my mind around how I was going to student teach second grade. But if I'm being honest with the people here, my most important responsibility of the day was trying to figure out what beer I was going to get my hands on that night. Until one morning, I woke up in this rundown college apartment, laying flat on my back on this rundown college couch, surrounded by beer cans. I remember sitting up, the world was spinning, I had the hangover of a lifetime. And I remember staggering over to the television set, turning it on and watching it flicker to life, just in time to see an airplane crash into the World Trade Center. And in that moment, I was shaken to my core, and anyone that I think lived through September 11th experienced a range of different emotions. I was afraid. I never thought our country could be attacked like that, but mostly I was angry. I remember watching people tumble from those flaming towers and land on the sidewalk and die on national television. I remember watching people who were lucky enough to survive that fateful day stagger out of that covered from head to toe in thick gray soot. The only thing you could see were bloodshot eyes and a 1,000-yard stare. Who all remembers those moments? If you lived through September 11th, it's as if those moments are seared into our very consciousness as American citizens, right? But I think what affected me the most that day was how Americans responded to the threat. Police officers, firefighters, or just ordinary American citizens with no training whatsoever who, instead of running away from the flames that fateful day, I watched one American after the next run headlong into them in an attempt to save people that they had never met before, in an act of selflessness that I had never witnessed up until that moment in my life. And I remember thinking, how can I sit here and do nothing when ordinary American citizens are giving everything for people that they've never met, that they didn't even know? And so as I watched the horror of that day unfold on my television set, I remember something that my mom said to me growing up. Now, I've always been the black sheep of my family. I come from a big Italian family in Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. And she used to say to me, Sean, the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day that you figure out why. In the wake of the most horrific terrorist attack in our nation's history, I just believe I knew exactly why God had put me on this earth. And that was to serve something greater than myself. You know, join the United States military, defend the greatest country on the face of the planet. And so 2 days after September 11th, I went down to the recruiter, told him that I wanted to join the infantry, but not just that. I wanted to go to airborne school where the Army would teach me how to jump out of perfectly good airplanes. And then I wanted to go to Ranger School because I wanted to be the best leader that I could for my troops. 2 years after I graduated, 2 years after I graduated from college, I found myself in Afghanistan leading an infantry platoon right along the Afghan-Pakistan border, and our mission was to find Osama bin Laden. It was very simple. And we were supposed to be there for a year. Unfortunately, we weren't. We were there for 16 months, 485 days of heavy combat with the enemy. My platoon took an 85% casualty rate. Some of my men were wounded twice. I think one person was wounded 3 times. I was wounded as well. I got blown up by a rocket-propelled grenade, fractured my skull, had a pretty serious head injury, which is probably why I'm running for political office right now, to tell you the truth. But I learned a lot of profound leadership lessons that have stuck with me ever since. You know, I feel like I was extraordinarily blessed to lead the most diverse infantry platoon that you could possibly imagine. Black next to white, Christians next to atheists, young next to old, rich next to poor, and yeah, Democrats next to Republicans, all in the same foxhole. And we figured out a way to make it work. And we figured out a way to make it work because we put aside our many petty differences as Americans and focused on our common bond as Americans and united under a common banner, fighting for a common mission. We learned that we were unbeatable in battle. And it wasn't because we had the best equipment or the best guns or the best air power. All of that is true. But what made us unbeatable was the love and brotherhood that we shared for each other as Americans. Thank you. And that's when I learned the most important lesson of leadership. Leadership, first, last, and always, is about service to our fellow men and women. If service is beneath you, true leadership will always be beyond you. But leadership is about bringing people together, fighting together. And when Americans fight together, we're unbeatable, whether it's on the battlefield or here at home. And so I ended up being medically retired. I left the military in 2010, broken, had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And do you know what happened in the beginning part of September? Can I tell you a story? So I was doing an interview with Sebastian Gorka about geopolitics in the Middle East and the Afghanistan collapse. It was like an hour-long interview, super in-depth stuff. And I remember as I started that interview, my phone started ringing on my desk, and I look at it, and it was this New Jersey number. And I'm like, New Jersey? I'm like, I don't know anybody from New Jersey. And I just hit decline. And less than 5 seconds later, the number called back, and I'm like, I hit decline. So 10 more times that happens. Each time I hit decline. I finish the interview. I close my laptop. I look at my phone, and there's one text message on there and about 10 missed calls from New Jersey. And it's this text message from a woman named Molly. It said, Sean, this is Molly from President Trump's office. The president has been trying to call you for the last hour, and he just can't get through. And I said, oh, my God, I've been hanging up on Donald J. Trump. And I'm like, this is not going to go well. So, of course, I call back Molly, and she patches me through to the president. And he gets on the phone. Do you want to know what the first thing that he says to me is? He goes, Sean, it's your favorite president. And I just said to myself, how is this my life? I left the military 10 years ago with nothing, not even a plan. And 10 years later, I'm getting calls from Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. Is this country not the most exceptional nation on the face of the planet? What other country affords you that kind of opportunity? And so I've been on the campaign trail for 10 months now, and for 10 months I've been half joking, but now I'm absolutely serious. If you were trying to destroy this country in 10 months or less, what would you do differently than Joe Biden's doing right now? Look at our debt and deficit is soaring. We're seeing inflation in this country, the likes of which we haven't seen in 30 years. Going into 2022, we might experience stagflation for the first time since Jimmy Carter. Look at what's happening on our southern border. We're overwhelmed. Look at what happened in Afghanistan. Wholesale collapse of American foreign policy doctrine of peace through strength. You're paying more at the grocery store. You're paying more at the pump. And all of that is Joe Biden's fault. All of it. The Democrats are telling you what they want to do every single day. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we ought to listen to them. They're talking about packing the Supreme Court, which would fundamentally destroy this country. They're talking about making Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico a state, which would establish a permanent Democrat majority in the United States Senate. They're talking about abolishing the filibuster, which preserves the minority voice in the Senate. Joe Biden, a few months ago in the White House, walked out to the podium and said to all of this country that your rights in the Bill of Rights are not absolute. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what I think about that. I believe that your rights which are protected and enshrined in the Constitution of the United States are granted to you by God and not government. And nobody in government can ever take those rights away from you, and it's going to be my job to make sure that your rights are always protected. And I can tell you that when we win this state in 2022, you will not have to worry about that. In fact, one of the first vote, let me tell you, one of the first votes that I'm going to take when we get to the United States Senate, it's going to be to ban critical race theory. And that includes in our schools, and that includes in the United States military. It's a national security threat, and we should not teach our children to hate this country. I will never let the radical left defund the police. When we win in 2022 in Pennsylvania, we will defend the police. We're going to take care of our veterans, and we're going to rebuild our military. And you know what else we're going to do? We're finally going to secure our southern border. And I think it's about time that somebody in Washington stood up to China and stood up to them for the plague that they unleashed on this world. I will never allow your tax dollars to go to a country that hates us. It's not right. Everywhere we go, election integrity in this party is the number one issue. And when I get to the United States Senate, one of my first priorities will be fixing this country's elections once and for all. And that includes voter ID. You know, we secured an election in Afghanistan. You want to know, as a trained United States Army officer, they said, if you're going to secure an election in Afghanistan or in any country, you need two things. You need accuracy and you need transparency. How are elections in Afghanistan more secure than elections in America? It's not right. And in 2022, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you that I will fix that. And the last thing that I'll say, because I'm getting a little yellow card here, and I appreciate that. The last thing I'll say is this: I'm not a career politician. I have no desire to go down to Washington for 50 years. In fact, I can't stand politicians in either party who do that. Our founders never intended it. I will never be one of those people. In fact, my plan is to go to Washington for 1, maybe 2 terms. Do everything that I can to shrink the size and scope of the federal government, because I believe that there is a direct correlation between a small federal government and more freedom in your life. And more freedom in your life means your ability to chart your own path. And that means life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the way that you see fit, not the way some bureaucrat in government sees fit. And then when I am done with that mission, accomplishing that mission, I can assure you that I will buy a farm in western Pennsylvania with 300 acres and never talk to any of you again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity of a lifetime to save this country in 2022. The Democrats know that there's no pathway to the majority in the Senate without flipping this state. So I'm asking you to stand with me in that fight. Help me win Pennsylvania, help me save this country, and help me preserve the greatest country in the face of the planet for the next generation. Thank you all. God bless you, and God bless this amazing country that we live in. Thank you. Thank you. Just back here. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. Folks, we're going to do 50-50. Beth will.
All right, so we pulled in $365 tonight, so half of that is $183, and Sean is going to pick our winner.
I'm going to pick the winner. Let's see what we got here.
All right, we have 816-0851. 816-0851. Yay! All right. We're doing 2 more. We have T-shirts. We have 2 T-shirts. Hang on one second.
What is it?
That one right there.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you,
There
ma'am.
you go.
Appreciate
Thank you. All right.
Another one?
Yes, we have 2 T-shirts. We are. All right. Here we go. All right. 816-1107. 816-1107. All right. Next one. 816-0975. 0975. Wait. Oh. Yep, we need one more for the second T-shirt. All right. Yes, 0975. All right. 816-0777. 0777.
Winner over there, 077, was it?
0777.
0777.
All right.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Sean. Joe, T-shirt. And do you have the other T-shirt to give to her? Okay, folks, 2 weeks from tonight, 2 weeks is our next meeting. We could not get the hall the date we wanted because of other events. So this is honoring our veterans. So we want to make sure, please come, please bring gifts for the veterans' children and for them. You don't have to eat that night. No, I mean, you don't have to cook that night. We're going to have plenty of food here. So come, bring a friend and so forth. We're going to wrap it up in a second. Linda will say a prayer. What's that? They're going out the door. Linda, and folks, Dr. Zama has some other information on the vaccine. So if you'd stop at his table, that would be fantastic. Linda?
God bless all of you, and be safe on the way home. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Don't forget, the 2nd of December. Bring your gifts, your non-perishables, and lots of food that we can share. Okay? See you in 2.